Hey, this is Adam Torres, and I'm here to tell you that it has never been easier to start your very own podcast. At Mission Matters, our goal is to amplify stories that matter. That means we want to help you start your podcast because your story matters. We can do this in 3 different ways. 1, join our podcast school and take a free or paid course. 2, visit our resources page where we've already figured out what you need, such as where to host your podcast. Or 3, heck, we can even do everything for you through our podcast agency, including editing for cheaper than you can do in-house. Oh, and no contract, service is month to month. Get started by heading over to missionmatters.com and click on Start a Podcast. All right, now let's get into the show. Hey, I'd like to welcome you to another episode of the Mission Matters Money Podcast, your source for all things money. My name is Adam Torres. You can follow me on Instagram at AskAdamTorres. Keep up with my book releases, book tour schedule, signings, all that other good stuff. Always love to connect with you there. And as always, if you'd like to apply to become a co-author of one of my upcoming books, just head on over to the website, missionmatters.com, and click on Become an Author to apply. All right, so today I have Breene Murphy on the line, and he's Director of Client Experience over at EP Wealth Advisors, which is a Barron's ranked top 50 RIA. Breene, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Adam. I really appreciate it.
Oh, man, so excited to get into today's topic. So we're going to talk about the benefits of process mapping, which I know is something that you're very passionate about, so I'm excited to get your take on this. But before we do that, just to give the audience a little bit of a background, tell us a little bit more about EP Wealth Advisors, please.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. So EP Wealth Advisors, we specialize in financial advice that aligns with people's goals, and that'll include personalized financial planning. We have an organized personal financial website. It gets people along the line where they can see their total net worth. It gets into, we offer tax preparation. We have an estate planning side of it, as well as in investment management. But we're really interested in that real holistic picture about how can we really help somebody around achieving their goals from a financial perspective? So, we have a specialty in small business owners. So how that would look is a lot of small business owners don't really think about their business and personal finances as being integrated. And so we'll evaluate, both of those things and come up with strategies that, again, may align with their overall goals. That can look at succession planning. And there's a bunch of different places that might apply. Divorcees, it could be executives, but it really ends up being a process that allows us to tailor it to the individual.
That's awesome. Great stuff there. And so, Breene, I do want to switch up a bit. So I do want to go further into today's topic. So I know this is something that you're really passionate about. So the benefits of process mapping. I mean, that's a big topic. Some of the listeners may be aware of it or have some experience with it. Some maybe not. So where do you want to start with this topic?
Yeah, for sure. So what I would say about process mapping is there are a number of different names for it, right? You might hear a customer journey, or you might hear sales enablement. But it's basically looking at the fundamentals of the relationship you have with your customers, your clients, your consumers, and then just making sure that you have an understanding of all those touch points, and then aligning it with your organizational capabilities, right? So, there's 4 key components that we look at in actually creating a process map that sits in front of employees. So it allows them to see the big picture. We start with what is that customer or client insight during that specific situation? What are the processes we need to be addressing in that service to make sure that we address the needs there? And then what are the support tools that we have to fit in that process? And then the 4th thing is what is our rationale? What is our motivation? Because we're really trying to get into, how does that, connect where you're at? So I would say that's the big picture of what process mapping is. And one of the things that why I'm really passionate about it is you hear so many people, there's famous speeches from Steve Jobs talking about designing things around the consumer experience. And a lot of times we talk about it from a product perspective, how we use it, usability. But I think sometimes we don't talk about it as much when it comes to services, right? And EP Wealth Advisors, we are a service industry. We're trying to help our clients. We have relationships with them over long periods of time. We're really trying to make sure that they're making the right financial choices or the prudent financial choices that align with their goals, right? And so in doing that, there's some aspects to it that have been really helpful for us, right? And so, one of the things that we were talking about was aligning your best, performers in your company, right? So for us, that's going to be like a financial advisor, right? And like looking at how are they addressing those needs the best, going back to that process map. What are those insights? What are those needs in the process to address that? And what that does, is it oftentimes can unlock the way some of your best performers have a conversation around addressing those needs. And as you get into that, it can potentially align departments and their differing goals, right? Like any sort of company is going to have a slightly different approach, and each department is going to have slightly different goals. But if you start to integrate those across the department, like garnering feedback along the way, at EP Wealth Advisors, I find myself very fortunate because I get to work with people that have been really collaborative and really smart on this. And so it allows you to align a lot of the departmental goals. And then there's things that are really valuable that end up coming out of that, because now that you have, the best practices from some of your best performers, and you have aligned department goals, it allows for things like, whenever you onboard somebody new, you can train them like really diligently and specifically on how to do things your company's way. We are also like acquiring a lot of other financial advisor firms. And so it gives us a context for the people to see like, oh, this is how we do something, right? And so it can just set a better level of communication across the board. And we're also in an industry that's highly regulated. So there's an even greater level of value to it because it can set the compliance standards as well. I'm very fortunate. I have a good relationship with my chief compliance officer, but it's like there's a reason why his goals and the departmental value that he has need to be integrated into these processes, right? So it's like making sure our teams are as compliant as possible, so we're delivering like that that great client experience as we can. And for us, I watch this work with financial advisors and then take it to the department level. Our compliance officer, his name's Mario Shalene, he was really great. Our head of financial planning, Erin Voisin, she was really instrumental in helping us come up with processes that integrated into like how we address clients and deliver our financial plans. Our head of it, we have two heads of investing, Kevin Ashworth and Adam Phillips. They were really great talking about like what are the needs from an investment perspective. We have the operations and administrative side and a lot of the data. And so like as we worked across that, we had this team kind of come together and build something that started with the client's needs, right? Is really designed about that, the classic design thinking, that like builds into what our core capabilities are at and sets up for something that becomes repeatable. And then the thing that I like to have that marketing and advertising background is more of a brandable experience, something that we can really speak to and separate as we continue to grow and become more familiar. And so we can just be laser focused. And so I feel really grateful, for that work, but I'm also really passionate because I feel like, it's something that I wish I would have embraced more at my old job at in advertising. I was trained to do this for other companies, but now I see like what this could have done and unlocked for our advertising company before, right? Because we did it for other people and I was trained in it, but we didn't do it for ourselves. And I just recognize this value as it is something for anybody that's building a business, because it can apply in so many different ways. Even the way like you podcast, right? It can help deconstruct how you, Adam Torres, can podcast. So there's
awesome.
It's just like it's not something that a lot of people talk about, but I'm just a big believer in the
love
value.
it. No, I totally get it, and I get where you're coming from, and it just makes sense. And you're right. It's one of those things that we talk about, and again, you name multiple different ways that people could look at it, but how many of us actually do it? Think about that client journey. And so over here, like with our podcast agency and the things we do, we count the clicks. Like we count the clicks, all of our customer experience and journey, all of that. We count the clicks on how does somebody get booked for a podcast? How does their email look like? How does the follow-up look like? Like how simple is it for somebody to understand what we're doing? And that's taken thousands of interviews. I go approaching 3,000 interviews for us to get our process down, our distribution of content, all those things down. And the biggest idea or the biggest thing is if the person that's on the other side or that's consuming our content, or if somebody else is looking at that and says, oh, that's easy, I could do that, or oh, look at that, and I want to do that. I mean, that's our ultimate win, to make it look easy. And I think that's the goal, and I think that's what the goal of a great company like EP Wealth Advisors also is doing, is they're trying to make their client experience, and you're making your client experience feel like, your clients belong there. Like, this is easy, this feels good, this is where I want to be. This is a company that I want to work with. And the amount of thought and effort that goes in on the back end to do that, the amount of brain power and the amount of just to create that experience, it's well worth it. Because long term, I mean, that's how you have those advocates that then refer, and then it creates a great scenario also for the employees too, and the people that are working there day to day. Because it's win-win on both sides. Because if there's a monkey wrench in that whole cog or that whole machine for anything, it's just headaches for everybody. So the better it can be designed and created, I mean, the better for all players concerned. So, I mean, I love it, Breene. So that being said,
you know what the thing is? There's one more thing that I think is really, really great about it. It's living and breathing. And so what it provides you an opportunity, if you're really using it, is to see the choke points and the weak spots with an increased level of clarity, right? Like if you're going through the process, so we, at EP Wealth Advisors, we just updated our onboarding process because we had been working on it, for a while, and we were Steve Beals, he's our chief administrative officer, Elena Israel, they were looking at this and they were seeing that there were like choke points in this onboarding around paperwork, and we were able to split up a couple things, and from my point of view, I'm not usually the person coming up with the solutions, but it helps, this framework helps integrate everybody's solutions. And that's the thing that I like. It gets all the best thinking from everybody and helps you identify problems and continue to solve them as they come up.
That's awesome. So, Breene, that being said, first off, I can talk to you about this all day long, but we're about out of time for this episode. So if somebody's listening to this and they want to connect to learn more about either EP Wealth Advisors or to connect with yourself in general, I mean, what's the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, you can reach out to me at my email at bmurphy@epwealth.com. You can Google me, find me on LinkedIn or epwealth.com. I have a bio there that connects directly to my profile. So any of those things are great. I'm really passionate about talking about process mapping and this sort of thing. So if you have any questions for me, I'm always happy to answer them.
Fantastic. Well, Breene, really appreciate you coming on the show today and sharing more about your background, all the great work you're doing over at EP Wealth Advisors, and also about the benefits of process mapping. So lots of helpful info you gave there. And to the audience, as always, thank you for tuning in. Hope you got a lot of value out of this. If you did, don't forget to subscribe to the podcast, leave a review in the Apple iTunes store, and if you're watching this on our YouTube channel, Mission Matters Money, definitely give us a subscribe there, but also leave us some comments in the video. Love to know what kind of projects and things that you're working on. And Breene, thanks again for coming on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me.